Welcome back for Unit 3. This unit introduces the next big idea we need for our web crawler, which is structured data. And by the end of this unit, you'll have finished building a working web crawler. The closest thing we've seen so far to structured data is the string data type, introduced in Unit 1 and used in many of the procedures in Unit 2. A string is a kind of structured data, and that's because we can break it down into its characters. The string is a sequence of characters, and we can operate on subsequences of the string. What we could do with strings was somewhat limited, though, because the only thing we can put in a string is a character. So today, we're going to introduce the list data type, and lists are much more powerful than strings. So whereas for a string, all of the elements had to be characters, in a list, the elements can be anything we want. They could be characters, they could be strings, they could be numbers, they could also be other lists. So let's look at an example. When we created a string, we just put a sequence of characters surrounded by either single or double quotes. So here's an example of a string, and we could store that string in a variable by using an assignment. With a list, instead of using quotes to identify the list, we use square brackets, and the elements are separated by commas. And just like with a string, we can assign the list that we created to a variable. So we'll store that list in the variable p. With a string, we could use the square brackets to select elements. And when we index element 0, we'll get the first element of the string, a sequence of that character, which is the character y. With lists, we can also use square brackets to access elements. So if we do p square bracket 0, that will evaluate to the first element of p, which is the string containing the single letter y. With strings, we saw that we could use the colon inside the square brackets to select a substring of more than one character. So here we're selecting from position 2 through position 4. That will give us the third and fourth characters of the string, which is the subsequence, the string bb. We can do the same thing with lists. We can select from position 2 to position 4. But instead of returning a string, it will return a list containing those elements. So it will give us a list of the third and fourth element of the variable p, which is the list that we have here. So the general grammar for constructing a list is to have a square bracket followed by a list of any number of expressions where the expressions are separated by commas. So we could create a list using just two square brackets, a left bracket and a right bracket, and this would create a list containing 0 elements, also known as the empty list. We could create a list containing one element. That would be the square brackets with one element between them. Here we've created a list containing just one element, which is the number 3. Or we could create a list with many elements, as we did in the first example, where we have all of these strings separated by commas.